Hello and welcome back to the How to Get an Analytics Job podcast. We are kicking off month 2 of season 2, which means we are going to be getting into our success stories month. The guest lecturer for this week is Christina Stethopoulos, who is a data analytics consultant for Google. What we're going to do in this episode is hear her story to getting that very sought after Google job. She talks through kind of where she started early on in her career, how she used grad school to pivot, and then her jobs focusing more on data after grad school. There's also a strong emphasis in this episode on communication skills. In the interactive portion of this episode, we actually have Connor Brown and Zane Smith who have put together elevator pitches. Christina Stethopoulos gives some concrete feedback on how they can improve their elevator pitch and communicate more effectively, both who they are as a professional and where they're going. Stick around to the end of the episode because our social media manager, Al Bellamy, will host the Q&A section where we'll address the students' questions and the LinkedIn submitted questions. If you're brand new to the podcast, let me give you a quick breakdown on what we're doing this season. So I'm teaching the Analytics Minor Capstone course at Greensboro College, where the students are working with 2 of my analytics consulting clients. In tandem with the consulting engagements, there is a series of guest lectures where I've brought analytics experts that I know in to come and talk to the students. I'm also opening up the questions to our LinkedIn page. So if you are a podcast listener or a YouTube watcher, head over to LinkedIn and you can start submitting questions and start joining in on the conversation. This podcast episode is brought to you by Panoply. Panoply is a platform built for analysts that connects over 60 different data sources, making it easy for you to explore your data in SQL, visualize in tools like Power BI or Tableau, or even analyze your data in your favorite programming language. Click the link in the description down below, and you'll get a free 14-day trial to panoply.io. If you feel like you're getting a lot of value out of the podcast, the best thing that you can do to give back is to leave a like, a comment down below, or even share this video with your network. That's going to help us boost our signal on the YouTube algorithm, and we'll get to help even more people. Without further ado, let's jump into the podcast episode. So Christina, how are you doing today?
Good. I'm really excited to be back. Very happy to see you again.
I know. It's been like, what, 3-4 months? It's been a while.
Yeah.
What we're going to be walking through is, Christina, your career arc. And in the kind of interview conversation, you're like, what does that mean? So we're going to be walking through kind of the highlights or the main beats of Christina's career path so far. And we might be pausing a little bit along the way to kind of drill down and unpack and kind of, dive into some specific topics.
Perfect. Yeah, I had asked you before because I've never heard of it referred to as a career arc, but I learn something new every day. I'll explain my career, my journey, and we spoke about this as well the last time that I was on the podcast a bit. So if you tuned in then you know that I have a very, I would say, odd path. Like I didn't follow a typical journey at all. I am originally from North Carolina, born and raised there. I went to NC State. And right after I graduated from my bachelor's degree, it was in an interdisciplinary field, but with a focus in statistics. Literally a month after graduating, I moved abroad to Madrid, Spain. And also, by the way, feel free to interrupt me at any point if you want to ask questions or dive deeper into something. But I moved abroad to Madrid, Spain with the idea of staying 1 year. And now I've actually been here for going on 9 years. So I never left.
Wow.
Yeah. That was back in 2012. So I moved out here, and at first I just came to get the chance to, live in another culture, learn Spanish. I didn't know any Spanish at the time. Travel around the world and just get this experience of living abroad. And obviously I was young. I didn't have a lot of experience. I didn't speak the local language, so I couldn't work in the field that I wanted to, which is statistics or analytics. So at first I ended up making like a freelance business. So I was doing business English consulting. So I found a niche in the market. I'm obviously a native English speaker, and I could help business professionals in Spain. They have a low level of English in general. So I was pretty much coaching business professionals here with their English. So it also gave me a chance to kind of get exposed to a lot of different businesses because we were reviewing like their presentations, their reports, their public speaking in English. And it was a very interesting experience. And although it was far away, it was like off the path from my degree. It ended up being beneficial, I think. Later on, about 3 years into living here, I did my master's in business analytics and big data, studied that abroad here in Madrid. And from there, that's when I really, like the master's pivoted my career into analytics, ultimately where I wanted to go. And from there, I had a little bit of experience working at SAS Institute, the software. From there, went on to Nielsen, the American market research company. I was a project development and big data engineer. And then finally moved to Google, where I've been now for like 3.5 years, working as a data specialist slash analytical consultant. So that was my like career path, but my journey gets even more complicated because on the side, during all of this, I was also doing public speaking and then ended up getting appointed an adjunct faculty position at the school where I studied my master's. So I was kind of growing in both sides. I was working and kept teaching, started teaching classes in analytics, and now I continue to do that. I run classes here, I guest lecture at other universities, and I do a lot of public speaking. So I'm all over the place.
That's fantastic. Well, and I feel like I can really relate to you on multiple fronts. So number one, I did the same thing where I used a master's degree that was analytics centric to pivot my career. But then also, I feel like I've kind of got a wide breadth of experience because before I was, getting my master's degree, I sold insurance, and I also started a few.
Oh, yeah, you told me that. Yeah.
And that was rough. Just like getting rejected over and over and over, like 20 times a day, every day for 3 years.
Yeah, but you built tough skin, which is very important.
I feel like that kind of gumption, resilience is something that's not, it's kind of talked about more so in the entrepreneurship circles that I kind of like see myself in. I don't know. I guess it's kind of seen in the analytics space, but not nearly as much. Like there's not like a hustle culture as much as in the entrepreneurship space.
Yeah, but I think it's a very beneficial skill to have, and at least to get that tough skin because you're ready for any business setting. Even as an analyst, you're gonna get put into meetings or presentations, and you need to be ready in case somebody does, I don't know, disagree with you or something. But be ready with tough skin is always a good thing.
Yeah, well, and something that I think I've developed as a coping mechanism, and I'm totally going off the cuff here, of focusing on execution, less on outcomes. So like just do the work, do the daily practice, and then whatever comes, be grateful for, but don't try to force and like pigeonhole what's coming your way.
Yeah, well, I've definitely done that. I've let things come as they may. I'm like a big believer in kind of just following your journey, like not trying to force things, not trying to over plan things, which we've learned very well this year that you cannot plan things last year because COVID hit. So it is nice to kind of let things take you.
Right. And it's also too, like if you at age 12 decide that you want to be a doctor, should you live your entire life based on the thoughts and impressions of a 12-year-old? You may not actually like it. I think there's something to be open and alive and kind of like surrendering to what's coming your way, as opposed to, I totally get this where I'm like, I get hyper focused and just push and push and push. And it's worked for me to get to the kind of where I'm at now, but I'm realizing that is a maladaptive strategy for me moving forward.
Yeah, of course.
But okay, so let's talk about your master's degree. So what are the pros and cons of getting a master's degree?
Yeah, I would say my opinion is pretty strong on this, but because I really did use my master's degree to pivot myself. And I know it's true, I was in a foreign country, so I had a couple other factors that are not typical. but at the same time, I am a big believer in it. For me, it was necessary for me to pivot my career back into analytics because, I'd kind of gotten sidetracked. So I need to find a way to get back into it. And also at the same time, like I said, there's other factors playing. Being in Spain and Europe in general, a lot more people have master's degrees than they do in the US. So you have that added pressure. But for me, it was necessary. Like if without that, I would not be where I am today. So I'm really glad I made that decision. I think as well, like masters have a lot of different pros and then they have their cons. So one pro for me, and I'm sure that it happens in other masters, is that when you're doing a master's, you should be exposed to the latest in the field. Whereas if you continue on at a company, you might not realize that you're getting put into a bubble. Like you might be using legacy technologies and tools, and you'll get behind. So that depends on the company you're at. But if you feel like that might be happening to you, a master's degree is a really good idea to get the latest knowledge, to know what's really going on in the market. Another big pro is the networking, of course. So you're going to get a chance to meet a lot of people that are going to later on go to work at other companies, and you're going to have all these different connections. So it's very important to take advantage of that networking and then stay in touch with people. I went to an international business school, so I don't remember how many countries we had represented in my class, but it was around 30, I think, people from 30 different countries. And the advantage is that now I have friends in 30 different countries. So it's very cool networking aspect. But then a con, I would say, with a master's is that you need to kind of balance. If you're going to do a full-time program, then you're going to be out for a year or two out of work. So if you have a really good job, you're going to have to decide if you want to leave that and pursue the master's. In the best case scenario, maybe if you have a good job, you can get to an agreement with them where they let you come back after. But that there's always that risk. So you have to be willing to leave your job. And if you're already at a job where you think you're getting sufficient experience and you're growing a lot professionally and personally, you need to be careful how you're going to weigh that out, because in the end, a master's can be the equivalent of good experience too. Not every company is going to ask for a master's. Your experience might replace what you would get in a master's anyways.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think that it's a tough call because there seems to be an arms race of all the colleges are building out more and more and more grad school programs. But would you agree with the statement that I think it's probably a good return on investment in the data science and analytics space? Totally.
I mean, for me, I like I said before, I couldn't have gotten to where I am today without my master's in the field. And of course, if you're trying to pursue this field, there's a lot of opportunity out there, but more and more, there's more competition. People are realizing the opportunity in this field. You're going to be up against a lot of other competition out there. So of course, a master's is going to bring you, more top.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I think that's true because you're going to get filtered out. In one of the previous episodes, we talked about applicant tracking software, and a lot of companies are looking for applicants who have master's level, and they're not even going to look at. So that pool of people who are applying for jobs with a master's degree is getting, I think, bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah, and also the algorithms. So they can also be using algorithms that are filtering out people that don't have a graduate degree, a master's degree.
Right. Okay. So I've got kind of a fun question for you. So if you had to go back to the beginning and start over from step one. So let's say that you just finished up high school and you are a freshman in undergrad. How would you go about kind of carving out your ideal career now that you're looking back on it?
Okay, so freshman undergrad, right?
So yeah, freshman and undergrad. What would you study, or would you even go to school?
Yeah. Well, yes, I would go to school. I don't regret that part. I first have to say that I try never to have regrets. Like I'm not the type of person who imagines those what if scenarios, because then you get into these flips. It's not good for you. And like I said before, I believe everything happens for a reason. So I wouldn't actually go back and change anything. I'm really happy with where my path led me. But having said that, if I were going to advise someone else that was in a similar situation to me before, then and like you said, from your freshman year. So if they're at the beginning of their journey, I personally chose civil engineering when I first got started and then changed. And I think that's very normal that you might not know what you want to do the first year. So don't be scared to change the first year, the second year, even the third year. But don't kill yourself over something that you're not enjoying. And that was the thing. I didn't enjoy what I was studying. I ended up changing and found something that I really enjoyed, and I think it was the right decision. So that's one thing. Don't be afraid to, if you're questioning yourself, look into other options. It's never too late. And then another thing that I would very highly recommend is to start networking when you're young. So get involved as much as you can with your university and with the local community as far as analytics goes. Make as many connections as you can, have conversations, and also try to get some hands-on experience. So, it can be even a 1 or 2 day a week internship or a summer program, but find a way to get a little bit of experience in the field. I didn't start in analytics until really my master's. Before that, I didn't have any experience in this field. I was working since I was 16, but all sorts of different jobs, not in analytics. So if you can, try to get your hands dirty in the field.
What do you think about getting volunteer work with like doing analytics work for nonprofits?
I think that's awesome. I've done it before. I've done some volunteer work. And I think it's a great way to get experience.
So how did you find that? Because that's actually a topic that our audience has sent us of. I actually just stepped down from a treasury position, but for Tried Local First, which is a local nonprofit, I was a treasurer for the past 2.5 years. I just got overwhelmed with how much was going on, so I had to step down. But there, I got to manage like a finance committee, and that was, I'm actually pretty weak on the like financial analytics. So I learned a ton. And I've kind of given my story of how I got in there, and it's essentially just organically getting involved with the community. How did you get your analytics volunteer position?
So mine was so I did one little project. It ended up being like a refugee study, I believe, through South America. But I got it because I was part of an association. I think it's the American Statistical Association or one of these, but it was from a community. Like I said before, be involved in local communities or even, bigger global communities. Sign up to be, members in these communities, attend webinars, etc. But it came from one of these groups that I was a part of, and they put a posting in the community and they said, hey, we have this, request coming from, I can't remember the organization, but coming from this organization. And they said, we need somebody who speaks English and Spanish and can help us with data analysis. And I was like, oh, perfect. Now I know Spanish. I did this during my master's. It was like a little side thing I did. It was only like a month long, but it was a great opportunity just to do something extra. And I think you'll be able to find things that you can work on just if you network more and talk to more people. And if you're looking for something to do, a project, mention it when you are at events or when you're talking to others. They might have something in mind.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice. I also think in the nonprofit space, there is a supply-demand differential of analytics talent. I think a lot of people who are drawn to the nonprofit space aren't usually, or typically, maybe this is my experience and it's biased, aren't as analytical minded. They're more like, I don't know, empathetic, touchy-feely. Like I'm going to change the world as opposed to I'm going to change this spreadsheet in Excel.
Yeah. No, and I'm sure that's why they were looking for help in that one study. But I know there has to be a lot of opportunities there, and I'm sure there's websites out there that are dedicated to this stuff, where they're posting opportunities and things. So, but what I really like is just finding opportunities from communities that I'm a part of, or from talking to people.
Yeah. Okay, so sorry, we went down like a whole detour. Getting back to the question of how would you start over? So you said you would go to college and you would find something that you're interested in. So let's say you're interested in data. Then you would find a volunteer position in analytics. Okay, so let's say you've got a degree in undergrad in analytics or something data science-y. You got that volunteer position. Now what?
Keep growing. So that's not enough. And now I've become, I mean, nowadays I'm doing like a million things at once. I like to keep myself busy, but if you like what you're doing, then, you don't even notice. So other things that you can do is also to like get involved, like I said before, with communities, but see if you can hold a position on a board, even if it's at the university, maybe a analytics club. So when I did my master's, I was one of the officers for the big data club for the entire university. And we worked together to put on events, to do a career fair, things like that. So anything that you can stay connected to the community, and it doesn't necessarily have to be hands-on analytics practice. In that case, I was helping run events, but related to the field. And like a side bonus of that was because I was there organizing these events. I was getting personal time with the speakers that we were inviting. I was getting a chance to also sometimes be on the stage because I would be introducing the people or hosting a panel. So also find maybe creative ways to get involved with the community that's not necessarily getting your hands dirty.
So this might be a super nuanced question, and I'm personally interested in this actually.
Okay,
What is the, so I'm on the advisory board for Greensboro College's business school. What does that signify like out in the marketplace? Like if you could be on the board of a nonprofit or a business school, well, two things actually. What does that signify? And should I put that in my volunteer or my work experience? Because I've seen Jason Krantz actually came on the podcast, and he's been on multiple business school boards, I believe, and he has that under his experience section.
it's a good question. I mean, as a rule of thumb, typically if I'm not getting paid for it, I put it under volunteer work. If I'm getting paid for it, then it goes under my experience. But when you do your resume, your CV, you should have a volunteer experience section. Like I actually have a little section separate from experience. It says volunteer, and it will list a couple things that I've done on the side. But for me to make the easy distinction, it's paid versus not paid. But I mean, of
Okay.
course, that probably has other interpretations. So
Okay, so what is the value though of being? Because I've talked to Jason about this somewhat, and it shows leadership, and I feel like leadership is still in my own mind a very nebulous concept. Why do employers or people in the analytics space? Why is leadership so important as far as like a brand point for an individual?
I think leadership and teamwork are probably two of the most important things, which can be very different. Leadership and teamwork. So you're right about having the chance to serve on a board is showing that you have leadership, this leadership skill. But also, I think on another hand, it's important because it helps you stand out from the crowd. So the more that you do these extra things, I feel like it makes you stand out from a typical pool of candidates. Because imagine they're hiring for an analyst and they have 10 people who have a degree in data science and 3 years of experience in XYZ. But if you're in that pile and you also have experience serving on the board here and you did this volunteer work over the summer in, I don't know, Tanzania and et cetera, I think in the end, it just helps you stand out. So not only it's great for leadership, yes, and you might get a chance to speak about it in interviews. It's something that you might be able to highlight. But then also when you're compared to a candidate pool, anything that you do on top extra outside of your work, outside of your studies, it helps just bring you to the top of that pile.
Interesting. Okay. Something that I'm kind of like working through in my head right now actually is that if you are in a like why kind of digesting why leadership matters, I think it's the difference between being an order taker and someone who kind of takes accountability and owns their job. So like are you proactively solving problems, which is leadership, versus I'm going to sit around and wait for you to tell me what to do.
This is important, but like I said before about teamwork, it's really important, I think, to show the balance. Not
Okay.
that only you're a leader and you know how to lead a team, you know how to take responsibility, but also it's very important for you to show that you're good at collaboration. And this is, and I think you said you served on a board. So in that case, there was other board members, right?
Right.
I think it's in that case, it's like a mix of leadership and teamwork. You were leading, yes, you were helping lead this initiative, but at the same time, You should highlight the collaboration. You are working with other board members towards a common goal. So I think it's like you have to be good. You have to be careful about balancing it, because you don't want somebody who just commands. You also want somebody who's very good at working with others, collaborating, bringing the best out of others, and also somebody who knows when to step down. So it's not always your moment to shine or your moment to lead. It might be a moment where it's something that, one of your teammates could lead better. So being able to demonstrate that you can easily balance between the two and you have both skills.
Yeah. So would you say that those are the two top soft skills? So leadership and teamwork?
Those would be, I don't know if I'd say, I don't know how I wouldn't be able to put them in order, but they're very much at the top. Two of the top three, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I guess let me ask a very pregnant question. Would you say communication is a soft skill that is very important?
Yes.
Because I'm making a very smooth transition into the interactive section of the podcast, where Zane Smith and Connor Brown have prepared an elevator pitch. And what we're going to do is we are going to completely shred these elevator pitches and just build them back up. Now, I'm kidding. Christina, I know you're super sweet. You're not going to be super mean.
Yeah, I can't. I'm really bad about I can't tear people down.
But I guess tell us a little bit about your thoughts on what is an elevator pitch and why is it important?
Yeah, I would say an elevator pitch, it has to be very quick, first of all. So it can be 15 seconds, 30 seconds, but this is something that you always have prepared in case you have this shining moment to present yourself to someone important. So someone important, it could be, you're at a job fair, you're looking for a job, and you're, mingling with the other the companies that are there at the career fair. Or it could be you're at an event and you're looking for a mentor. I don't know. So it's also very, very important to have clear, why you're making this elevator pitch. Like, what's the final objective? Are you trying to get a job? Are you trying to get a mentor? Are you just trying to make a good impression on people so they remember you? So kind of have that in the back of your mind while you're doing this. And then you need to find a way to quickly grab the attention of the audience, of this person, and also introduce yourself in a way that they will remember you later. So a way that you will stand out. And you can also think of it, LinkedIn is like a digital elevator pitch where you have, the intro at the top. You have your headline, that's super important. And then you have your little summary. This is almost like a mini elevator pitch. But the purpose is that it's supposed to be short and sweet, and get their attention and make them remember you later.
Perfect. All right, Zane, Connor, you
Good
guys
luck.
can unmute yourselves. And let's hear it. Pitch us.
All right. Well, I'll start first. I'm Connor Brown, and I'm an aspiring sports data scientist, and I'm really interested in both math and sports, and I'm currently building my career around the intersection of the two.
Okay. So, and I'm not very good at being mean. I'll be sweet. No, but first I would say it's good. Like, it shows you're very much focused on what you're interested in. It's also really short. Like, I would say make it longer. You have time. You don't have to make it that short. So make it quite a bit longer. You said what you enjoy, what you like, but also if you can't, I know you're all studying now, so you probably don't have experience yet. But once you do have experience, you'll be able to say, I'm currently working at XYZ as a blah, 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 helping our clients, blah, blah, blah. So also I would try to, you may be able to include for now what you're studying. If you don't have experience, then include what you're studying right now. I'm currently pursuing my degree in blah, blah, blah. Other things I would say, so you need to be careful. There's 3 things that are key with the elevator pitch. The first thing is to talk slow, but I think you did more or less good. You didn't. A lot of people, when they get nervous, they'll speak really fast, but I don't think you did. Another thing is to be very natural. So I think you were reading from something, weren't you?
Yes, that was.
Okay, so you have to be natural. So you have to like ingrain this in your head. And also, you don't necessarily have to memorize it. Just memorize the key ideas. And then when you're talking to somebody, when you're networking, it should come out more naturally. And it's probably going to adjust depending on the person that you're talking to and depending on how comfortable you are with that person. So I said the three things were be slow, be natural. And then the third one is to be confident. So smile and be very confident in yourself. And I think that last one is probably the most important, is confidence, not just in elevator pitches, but in general when you're networking and when you're doing interviews. Confidence is so, so important.
So
I don't know if you have any other comments. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to push back on your pushback here. And this is something that actually Al mentioned when we did the lecture on LinkedIn, is that you don't want to brand yourself as a student. You want to brand yourself as like what you're going to be. But I think that might be a controversial point though, because saying I'm going to be something is like, you're not that yet. But I think I actually gave them the phrase aspiring X as
I like
as
that
kind
though.
of, do you like that?
Yeah, I do like the expiring X. And I also like, so in a way I agree with what you're saying about the student thing. And this is something that I very strongly believe, that you should not brand yourself as a student, blah, 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 or as an analyst at XYZ company. I think a lot of people eventually get into this bubble where they say, I am an analyst at Ford, and that's me. No, you are way more than that. So
That's like a European American thing, right?
What?
Like as Americans, we typically are very focused on our career. So my friend Allie, that was a year ahead of me in my MBA program, got a job at Volvo as an analyst, then moved to Brussels. And she said that she would be out for drinks and would mention work. And they were like, what are you doing? We're out on the town. We don't talk about work. We're not at work.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a European thing. I mean, I see a lot of people doing it here too, to be honest. And maybe it's just what I've seen in Spain. But what I mean is that make sure that your job or your studies don't define you. You can use it in your intro because I personally think you can use it because it is what you're doing now. You're studying this or you're working as this, but don't make everything about that, because you are way more than what you study or what you work on. So I try to emphasize that for myself. So I don't put, for example, in the headline in LinkedIn, I don't put, analyst at Google. I actually try to avoid that because I don't want people to just associate me with that. I want them to think of me as something more.
That's okay. That's leading me to a very broad question then. Like, what should you identify as professionally? Like, as the problem you solve is the immediate thing that's coming to mind. But I don't know. I haven't like really kind of thought through that yet.
I like the aspiring, like you said before. So aspiring XYZ, I think that's great. Something along those lines. But I just firmly believe that you shouldn't get too stuck, too glued to your position or your studies. It's very important, of course, but it comes second to what you define yourself as.
I'm having a hard time envisioning what you're saying. Can you give me some concrete examples?
Yeah, like me, like I said before, I don't say I am an analyst at Google. I could get a lot of attention just for saying that. But you'll see I say I'm a data whisperer, or I host the Book a Week challenge. I do many different things so I can give myself personality. So I'm not just, Christina, the analyst at Google.
Okay. Tell us about this Book a Week challenge. I know you want to talk about it.
I
know that's your thing.
The Book a Week challenge somewhere there.
I was about to say, so is it reading a book a week?
Sorry?
I said, pitch it. I want to hear it.
What, the Book a Week challenge?
Well, I want to hear your Book a Week pitch, since we are talking about pitch, not to get too meta right now.
Okay. I mean, you did put me on the spot there, but for anyone,
that is what pitches are for, when you're put on the spot.
Yeah, you're right. Now, the Book a Week challenge, for those that do not know, I've been hosting this for a couple years, and pretty much, I haven't thought about this before. You really did put me on the spot. I hate you. No, but so I started this a couple of years ago with the idea personally to get myself to read more. And it ended up turning into this community effort because now I host the challenge on LinkedIn. And the idea is to encourage others to put down their devices, disconnect, and pick up a book. And part of that for me is that I only read physical books. I literally use it as a time to get away from technology. I don't read digital books. That's a personal choice. But anyways, for a couple of years, I have been reading a book a week. And I think it's a wonderful way to kind of supplement your continuous learning. It's another way to continue learning about many different subjects, because I also change books. So I'm constantly learning about history, physics, statistics, all sorts of things.
All right, I got to give you a 5 out of 5 for confidence. Let's see, it's a little bit long, but
yeah, I didn't prepare. You're right. You got me.
No, but I think that that's the whole point of a pitch, though, to have it like locked and loaded.
Yeah.
But I think that I wanted to put you on the spot to show a point. You were so good at communicating, and like even if it's you're pulling it out of thin air, you're so good as a conversationalist that you got the point across. I'm curious. I mean, I think that that's something that is not talked about enough, is like the art of conversation and like flowing and being communicative and actually expressing your ideas.
And I think having that skill is very beneficial once you get into the work world. So for all the students connected right now, this skill is super important because of interviews. So you're going to get asked questions like, tell me about a time when, or what would you do if? And if you're a good storyteller and you know how to put your ideas together, you're going to be able to impress them. Whereas those who don't have this skill or don't have enough practice, even if you're the best coder around, or, I don't know, whatever you are, if you cannot convince them during that job interview, if you can't put the story together, you're not going to get the job.
I absolutely agree, wholeheartedly. Okay. Good. Speaking of pitches, Zane, you're not off the hook yet. You still there?
Yes.
Zane has the advantage that he already heard one before.
Well, he heard two.
Oh, yeah, that's
too.
Okay, well, I'm going to guess that mine is probably a little short as well, but we'll just, I'll just roll with it.
All right, I've got a challenge for you then.
You want me to change it a little bit on the spot?
Yes. Try to turn it into a conversation. Like, use it as an anchor for a conversation about yourself, if you can.
Okay. Okay, well, my name is Zane Smith, and I'm a senior at Greensboro College studying business administration with a minor in business or data analytics. And I basically have a passion for three things: golf, data, and trying to find the most efficient way to use my time and effort. And I really want to take those passions and help people make data-driven decisions, whether it's in business or in golf.
Okay, so yeah, that was a bit longer, which is good. And I would say my first reaction, well, I did see you smiling, so that's good. I like when you're smiling, when you're talking, you're exuding confidence. That's a good thing. You also didn't look down and read at a paper, so you get a bonus for that.
I'm getting caught out.
No, I'm just joking. No, but one thing I would change is that you talked about like your passions. I would actually put that towards the beginning. So you started off saying, hi, my name is blah, blah, blah. I'm a student, blah, blah, blah. I would actually put the passion part first. I know before I said, tell where you're studying, which is good. I do think you should, but I would put that towards the end, and you can say, I'm studying this degree, blah, blah, blah. And I'm hoping that, my education will help me land a job in your company, something like that. But use it kind of as a hook at the end to say where you're hoping maybe this education will lead you to next. But I like the passion part that you said, and I would like that more towards the beginning.
Okay.
I also like that you use three things. I think that is like a really, I don't know if it's comfortable or effective, but saying this, and this. I feel like it's a great.
And 3 is the magic number. 3 is a very magic number for humans. I don't know why. There's something about psychology or philosophy that 3 kind of draws people in. So if you're going to name a couple things, choose 3.
Yeah, that did feel really good. I also kind of like the intersecting part, to where it's like just saying I do this one thing is not interesting. It's not compelling. To where like you're seeing it kind of in the broader context of what's going on.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that.
Awesome. So any closing notes on the 3 pitches that we just had?
I don't know if anybody in the crowd wants to share any feedback. I don't know if others that were listening, or between both of them that just did your pitches, what would you say to each other? Sitting next to each other, was there something that you were missing, or something that we haven't commented on that maybe could be improved on? Putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think trying to write it at the beginning, we did kind of make it longer than it, I think, needed to be. And so I really tried to shorten it up, but maybe a little bit more length is good. And I like the point you pointed out about having not just saying that your job is kind of who you are, and kind of expanding on that more, because it allows more of you as a person to show instead of just where you work.
Yeah.
Wait, I've got a suggestion. So Christina, I actually prepped them a little bit before this conversation and helped them a little bit.
Oh, okay.
Can we read the first iterations of both of your pitches?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Okay. Why not? Mine's already pulled up right here. So
Okay, read your first iteration. And actually, Christina, I'm curious if what I've done is actually if improved or hurt, and maybe it's a combination of the two.
Okay. All right, go for it.
So here's my first one. Okay, so my name is Zane Smith, and I have a passion to help golfers make data-driven decisions to better their golf game in the most efficient way possible. Increasing efficiency in business or in sport should be through hard data to make the best decision possible to give yourself the biggest edge on or off the course.
That's it, right?
Reading that
one. My first reaction is that it doesn't sound natural. So
exactly what I said.
Oh, okay. Good. No, I think that what the final pitches that you gave before sounded a lot more natural. I think what you just read to me, it sounds like, you sat down and thought about it and thought of some really good vocabulary to use. And I do like better the final pitches that you made.
It's very stiff.
Yeah, it was really
formal.
stiff, the original. Yeah.
Connor, did you erase it?
Well, yes. And I had it on my computer, which is not cooperating.
Okay.
Oh. Well, was yours kind of similar? Maybe a little bit too structured.
Yeah.
And not natural.
Yeah, it was the same kind of very structured, very robotic.
Though that can be okay for, your resume, for your little intro paragraph. But I think when you're speaking to people, and even if you went to a networking event and you had those original pitches prepared, you would feel unnatural in that moment. I think it would show, and you wouldn't feel confident, you wouldn't feel natural, and it would not help the situation. So I do think that the final ones that you gave were much, much better and a lot more natural.
Perfect. All right, so let's move into the Q&A section. Al, you've got everything consolidated and prepped, right?
I do.
Okay, awesome.
Oh, hi.
Al's on the call.
Stop.
He's from my
traveling office here in the Toyota Camry.
Oh, wonderful.
Well, actually, before we get into the LinkedIn submitted questions, the students that are on the call, do you guys have any questions for Christina?
About the elevator pitches in our careers in business class, our teacher, some of us actually performed our elevator pitches, and he said that we should end our elevator pitch with kind of like a question like, can you put me in contact with anyone who can help me, and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Whenever you're going to use an elevator pitch, it's for something. You're trying to get something out of it. So whether it's to get a job or just to make contact, but you should finish at the end with, I would love to chat more about this. Would you have time next week for a call so we can discuss, opportunities at your company? But I do agree with that you should finish it with some kind of question leading on to the next steps.
Oh, that's interesting. That's counter to what I told Zane and Connor. I said don't have a question built into it, but you could ask if you wanted to question specific to the context. Because if you're literally, if you're literally in an elevator.
Natural. If you're at a career fair, then it's very natural to ask.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear more about your company. Would you have time for a quick call next week that we could discuss this in detail? So if it's natural, but if you're just doing like regular networking, and you're getting along with the person, it might just be a question about like connecting on LinkedIn to stay in touch. Do you mind if I send you a request and we can connect and stay in touch after this? But I do think it's important to kind of have your end goal. Why are you chatting with this person? What are you trying to get out of it? And maybe even what can you give them back? Because it's not always take, but it's also give.
That's true. Any other questions?
I have 2 questions. So the first one is kind of like going back to what you said at the beginning about you moving to Spain. I'm just curious, like why did you move to like Spain specifically? Like what made you pick Spain?
That's a good question that I get asked a lot. Originally, I was actually going to move to Asia. So originally, I wanted to go really far and go to, Thailand or Hong Kong or something, and ended up settling on Spain. One big reason was the language. So I knew that if I learned Spanish, at the time I knew no Spanish, and now I'm pretty much fluent. But I knew that if I learned Spanish and came back to the US, I would have a lot more opportunities. So in the long term, I knew that it would pay off. So the language was a big bonus. Another thing I guess that kind of drew me as well is that my family is Greek. So I kind of have the Mediterranean touch. I know how the Mediterranean is. So it made it a little bit easier to move so far away. I would say it was mainly those two things.
Okay. And then my other question is, well, since you've read a lot of books, obviously, since, a book a week, that's a lot. What book or like books, I guess, if it's more than one, would you recommend for, I guess, students in our current place and, our careers and our life in general? Like, what are some titles or authors that you would recommend?
Yeah, do you want me to give like data recommendations? I would guess.
That would be fine, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I always come prepared with books. So I brought some just in case somebody asked me. So I have some of my favorite books, and I will show you. You have to read these. The first one is this one. It's called Everybody Lies. It's amazing. It's Everybody Lies, Big Data, New Data, and what the internet can tell us about who we really are. And it's pretty much about this guy who did his PhD thesis to prove that the best way to understand the human psyche is by analyzing search data. So it's all based on all these analyses he did on search, Google search, and then other types of search data. And then another one is this. So it's Weapons of Math Destruction. And this is more about data ethics. And then another one is this one. So AI Superpowers. This one I read kind of recently in the past few months. And it's about the race to build AI East versus West. So I learned a lot about China. I don't know a lot about the data space in China. And that book exposed me to a lot of what's going on there. So these are, I would say, like my 3 top books when it comes to data. And I know that all of you will enjoy them. They're not technical. They're actually like fun. You'll be learning something, but at the same time, enjoying it. So hopefully that helps answer your questions.
Yeah, they look really exciting. Thank you for sharing those with us.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Any more questions from the students?
I actually have one to piggyback off the learning Spanish. So you mentioned that coming back into the United States, you would have an advantage knowing a second language. What type of advantages would those be? And would you recommend learning a second language to someone like us?
Yeah, I think, and you've probably heard this before, Americans, we are very much in our own bubble and we don't learn another language. It's common that you don't. You come to places like Europe and everybody knows at least two languages. If you speak
Mhm.
just two, you're actually that's not impressive. There's people who speak three and four. They get exposed to it from a young age, and even the school system pushes that they learn multiple languages. I think absolutely that you should learn another language if you can. Do know that it's difficult. It's going to take years and years of work. It also is a lot easier if you immerse yourself in the culture. If you just stay in the US and try to learn another language, it's going to take longer, obviously. It's possible, of course, but it's going to take longer and more effort from your side, I would say. I absolutely think you should. And why? Well, one thing is that it does like open your mind to other perspectives. You just learn to think another way, and you would never be able to do that if you don't learn another language. It opens your eyes to so much more that I can't really explain if you don't know another language. But people that speak other languages, when you speak another language, you actually think differently in a different way. So it's like this new perspective. And then the other thing is the long-term benefits for work. So I know now when I go back to the US, and now Spanish especially has become very widely spoken. There are lots of jobs that they will, and I've seen it for analytics, they're specifically looking for somebody who speaks English and Spanish. So imagine if you have this killer resume and on top of that, you speak Spanish. You're now in a small pool of candidates.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it also can open more opportunities down the line if that's what you would like, but you'll get put into these even smaller groups of candidates, and it might even expose you to more seniority that you wouldn't be able to that might take longer to get to if you didn't speak multiple languages.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. That's great advice.
You're welcome.
Hi, I have a question.
Tell me.
I was wondering, what is your experience with like working with like a big company with Google and stuff, and how that has affected your career path?
So I'll speak like in general because I've worked at bigger companies. Before I worked at SAS, then I worked at Nielsen. Nielsen is very big, and then Google. And I've never really been exposed to the small company environment, besides when I was working on my own, but that's different. But working for big companies, I mean, they have their benefits and their downfalls. I, for one, working in analytics, it was really important for me to work at like big companies that were at the forefront of analytics. So I want to be exposed to the latest. But in order to do that, there's only some companies that are like that. So for example, I've avoided banking. No offense to anybody working in banking, but I think banks are a little bit behind the times. So I wouldn't want to work there doing analytics, for example. Whereas these companies, Google, Nielsen, SAS, they very much stay ahead, especially Google, especially the big tech. They stay ahead when it comes to tech. So that's a big advantage of working at these companies, is that you'll get to be exposed to some of the latest going on, and you will hopefully stay away from legacy technologies that will drag you down.
I think you bring up a really interesting point though about you approach taking a job from both probably the immediate, like what is the immediate return, but then also how does that fit into, because when I said what's your career arc, I was kind of thinking about it from like a hero's journey perspective, like what is the narrative structure of what's gone on in your life. And I think that that's really neat to see someone who is thinking about what, like, not only what's my next step, but what's my next few steps, and then choosing the right opportunities.
Yes and no, because I am very careful with planning. I try not to plan too much, but in a sense, yes, I do kind of keep that long-term goal in mind, but with flexibility, because I know I might not arrive there the way that I want to. Just like my own journey, I knew I wanted to work in analytics or statistics, something related. I didn't know how I would get there, and I took some pretty wide turns off the road, but I still came back, and it all worked out in the end. So I do kind of have those long-term goals in mind, and I'm very careful. I like to take risks, but at the same time, I'm very careful with the decisions I'm making. So when you're going for interviews and you're going to go to a new company, do keep in mind what what will this do for you a couple steps down the road? What could this mean for you 5 years down the road? Is it going to help you get closer to your ultimate goals, or is it going to bring you down?
I love that you've got that kind of mindset, because I think a lot of people are thinking about because theoretically you might take a job that pays really well, but it's going to pigeonhole you. Like, I don't know. I think they pay Cobalt developers like really well right now, because it's like a dying expertise, but like nobody knows that. So you can make, I don't know, $150,000 doing Cobalt developing, but there is zero future in that. Well, actually,
if you want to do Cobalt for the rest of your life, then you are set, I think. But yeah, if you want to be at the forefront of technology, then maybe that's not the best place to be.
So that's your vision, is that you want to be the forefront of technology and analytics?
Yes, of course. I like to stay ahead. I mean, I try to stay away from legacy stuff and at least have an idea of the latest going on.
Okay. Yeah. I feel like I'm with you on the fact that the vision changes. Because at first I thought I just wanted to be an analytics consulting agency owner. Then I got into teaching and I loved it, and now I'm doing kind of a weird hybrid.
Like me. I mean, quite similar to me, teaching on the side, but I love teaching, and it was something that I didn't want to leave. But that's okay. You can combine it, and you can kind of make your own hybrid journey.
Right. It's really empowering. Like I don't feel trapped. I feel like I enjoy what I'm doing, and they actually accent each other really well. So each one of the things I'm doing is better because of the other things I'm doing.
I think the fact that you're a practitioner, like you're in the field, you're actually doing things hands-on, it's a very good complement to education. So of course, there's people dedicated to academia and they're doing amazing things in research, but also these business practitioners who are in the field. You bring you and me as well, teaching. I bring this knowledge of what's actually going on right now in businesses, what do companies want, and students can absolutely benefit from that knowledge.
Right. Because I think you run the risk with the traditional academics is that they might be 5 to 10 years behind the technology curves.
Yeah, but in the end, that's really good for theory. So if they are teaching on theory, absolutely, they should be doing that. They know it better than anyone. I mean, imagine statistics. Statistics doesn't change.
Mm-hmm.
The core of statistics is what it is. I would much rather be with a researcher to learn that. They know what they're talking about. But yeah, I would be hesitant if we're going to start talking about business cases or asking them for career advice. If I'm trying to get into the corporate world, then you would want somebody else as a teacher. So I think it's really good to have a mix, though. Of course, you should be, as a student, exposed to both academia professors and then practicing professional professors.
Awesome. All right. Any other student questions? Going once, going twice. All right, Al, you can come chime in.
Okay. So we have a couple of questions submitted by super fans of the show. Deepa Sarajam is one, and Bikram Krishna is the other one. So you actually answered some of the questions they had, but we did have a poll amongst the people that have committed to come see the live chat on Friday. And so the 4 options they could vote for was, did they want you to talk about getting recruited to Google, building a data career in Spain, becoming a successful speaker, or the Book a Week Challenge? I'm sorry to tell you, the Book a Week Challenge got none votes. So
I'm so disappointed.
If only you had a better pitch.
9 votes, all told. I think we left it open for 24 hours. We got 9 votes. Anyway, so I know you talked extensively last time about getting recruited to Google, but people had questions about that. And I think the kind of the central theme is, what about your profile and your brand do you think attracted them to you? Or did they tell you what they were looking for that made them come to you?
I wouldn't say, I never got told of a specific thing, but I would say that I'm very consistently active on LinkedIn. And also people associate me automatically with data and analytics. So this was also very important, kind of links to one of the points I said before about not so much gluing yourself to your company or your studies. I am more known to be in data and analytics, but I'm not known because I was an engineer at Nielsen. So it's like they automatically, they had a position opening for an analytical consultant. They were thinking who locally could we hire for this, and my name came to mind, because they were like, oh yeah, this Christina girl, I know she's very much involved in the data community. I've always been very involved locally, like in my city in Madrid and even across Spain. I have a lot of connections here just because I go to events and I talk to people. I speak at events when I can, but I'm very active. So when people think about the data analytics world, I am one of the people that they automatically relate to it. And that helped.
Awesome. Thank you. So Vikram Krishna asked what made you go to Spain, which I think we've answered. We then asked, how did you cope with the language barrier and build a career? I know you've touched on that a little bit. Were there any secrets or any techniques that you used?
Yeah, I would say the language barrier is very tough. When I first moved here, I was frustrated because there was no way I was gonna get a job directly in my field. That was like a dream, but I just couldn't do it without, I realized that very fast here, that I wasn't gonna be able to do it, or I was gonna be very limited if I didn't speak the local language. So in the meantime, I did a niche job where I could be speaking English, but learning Spanish on the side. So once I felt comfortable with the language, then that's when I started propelling myself into the field. But I can say at the beginning, like when I first started working in Spanish, when I had my first interviews in Spanish, I was so nervous and it was very difficult. It took a lot of preparation, for example, for the interviews. As you can imagine, it's difficult doing an interview in English. Now imagine doing it in another language. So I actually did one tip I can give, and this works not just for Spanish, but in general in English, is that when I started my job hunt for jobs in the Spanish market in Spanish, I actually applied to some jobs that were okay, but I didn't really have any final interest in working there. But I wanted to get practice interviewing in Spanish. And I did get called back for a couple of them. And I think I went to 2 or 3 where I did the interviews at the company with no real interest in staying around, even if they made me an offer. But I went there pretending, and I got practice in Spanish. But that's a good tip, I think, even in English, that when you enter the job force and your first interviews, go and apply for some that you're not so convinced, but go and pretend and get that practice interviewing and see if you can land those jobs. So I did that even in the case of to help with my Spanish.
Wow. Okay. So since we said that 3 is a key number, Deepa also would like to know 3 things that a new entrant can focus on. What skills, what pathways, soft skills, hard skills, whatever. If you could pick 3, maybe that aren't the most obvious, what would you pick?
I don't know. Well, not the most obvious. I have to say communication, although that's an obvious one, but I think it's arguably the most important. Communication in general, just being able to communicate, to tell your story, to pitch, to public speak. It's always beneficial. Another one I would say is Squirrel or SQL. If you're going to work in analytics, I think SQL is like a basic language that everybody should know. And then, I won't make the argument for R, Python, whatever. I think SQL is a basic. And then one more would be I would say a soft skill. So confidence, and with that, tracking your accomplishments. So keeping up with what you're doing over the years, keeping a record of it, and then being able to sell yourself and sell your accomplishments, which kind of links into the pitch as well. It can kind of link into the elevator pitch.
So I would call that building your personal brand.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
It's weird thinking about it though, as like I'm starting to increasingly think about that now that like the podcast is getting more traction and people are starting to consume the content a lot more, of like, what's my brand position? It feels so goofy saying that. What is my position on this topic? It's like, well, it's got to be consistent with your brand, because if I'm constantly flip-flopping back and forth every week, then I don't have a cohesive message.
Yeah. It's very important. Your brand is going to take some time to develop. So I know we've got a lot of students connected right now. You're at the beginning of your journey. So it's going to take you a little bit of time to define your own brand. But I do think it's important to do that and figure out who you are, what you're passionate about, and then stick with it once you're sure of where you're going.
I love that. That's excellent advice. You got any more questions for us?
So one more, also from Deepa, but she was asking about what tools you use in your job at Google. So let's keep it with 3. What are the top 3 that you can name that one of these students could study?
So I use a lot of, I'm a bit biased, but I use internal tools. So although we're not limited, we can use others. We can use R and Python if that's what we want. But I stick to the internal environment. It's easier. So for data visualization, I use Data Studio. It's a Google Data Viz product. I have pending to learn Looker, because Google acquired Looker, which is like a more advanced one that would be more on the lines of Tableau. So I would recommend a data viz. Either way, learn a data viz tool. Data Studio, Tableau, Power BI, whatever it may be. And then others, I use a lot of SQL, of course, and internal systems, working with data. Daily, actually, I'm always using it. And then another thing you can learn is like BigQuery, or learn a little bit about cloud environments. And it could be Google, it can be Amazon. You can pick whatever one you want to stick with, but also learn a little bit about how to work with the cloud and what do the different platforms offer.
Looks like we lost your image, Christina.
Okay.
Oh no.
Awesome. John David, I think
Yeah, I think we're good to go. Yeah, you're back now.
Okay, I just restarted the video. I don't know.
Okay, awesome. Okay, Al, so we've wrapped up all the questions.
we're good. Thank you.
Okay, awesome.
Awesome.
Christina, thank you. This was incredible. I love that this was such a like meandering conversation where we just like went off on these little tangents, but I like, typical. Yeah. I mean, this is how I teach my lectures though, is something will come up and then we'll kind of examine the thought and the idea. I mean, like, you didn't even know you were going to be doing a pitch for yourself.
No. And I didn't know it was going to be in the Book a Week challenge. I would have prepared.
I didn't prepare. I didn't even think about it until I was like, oh, well, let's see someone who's an expert pull this off. Because, I mean, you did a great job. Like, you're a really good conversationalist. And, I mean, I hope everyone goes and checks out #Book a Week challenge.
And I think also very important with those pitches is smiling and being confident. So you put me on the spot and I hate you for it, but I think I still kept a smile on my face. And I think that makes a big difference. And even with, interviews and everything, go in with confidence. And even if you're, giving the wrong answer, at least you're, giving off a good feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Christina, thank you. This was incredible. Can't wait to see you in the live stream on Friday. So
yes, I will be awesome. There. And thank you very much for inviting me back.
Yeah, of course. And also thank you, students, for being on the call, and Al. See ya.
Bye-bye. Nice to meet everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.